Welcome to Step on Degas, a podcast about art history and how easy it is to commit an art heist. Today, we will be discussing the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum theft that happened in Boston, Massachusetts. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, Sam, why aren't you doing the Louvre? That's like the one that most happened recently. Well, I'll tell you why I'm doing it. Well, I'll do the Louvre later, obviously, but I wanted to do this one first just because I'm most familiar with the Isabella Stewart heist, so, I know the most about it. It seems like pretty straightforward to me. It's also the most expensive art heist to have happened, and this could have obviously been so easily avoidable, and we'll see that here in a little bit, but this one is just really disappointing. It actually makes me a little sad, but I also kind of want to just bring awareness too of the fact that these are so easily avoidable. We just might need to invest more in art security and all that stuff, because I really like going to art museums. This is something that's very important to me. I like studying art. I like being able to see what people put on what sort of medium that they choose to express themselves. I like seeing that at museums. I like getting to travel and do all that stuff. This summer, we're planning on going to Chicago too, so that's going to be a very fun one. I'll get to reenact the Ferris Bueller scene where they're standing in front of Sunday in the Park with George, so that'll be very fun. But yes, before we get into this, I want to give a little bit more background information on who Isabella Stewart is and kind of other information as well. So 13 total pieces of art were stolen and others were damaged. And I'm already getting riled up because I'm so mad about one of them being damaged, but we'll get to that here later. This is unsolved, obviously, and there are no arrests. There are theories about who it could have been and some of the groups that might have been involved, but who knows? I don't know. A lot of them are these are Boston mafias who were involved with this, and I don't know. It's hard to say. But yes, the frames of the artwork are still hanging in honor of the stolen art, which also is kind of in honor of what Isabella Stewart herself wanted from restoring the house. Well, not necessarily restoring, but more of reserving it as its original state. She really didn't want anything to be changed about it, and so thus they didn't really invest in any quality air, so then that was really messing up the paintings over time. And it's just keeping the house the way it is. Even though it is historical, some measures did need to go into effect in order to not only keep the art safe, but keep it in pristine condition as well. So from the beginning, that could have already been an easy fix. We could have gotten, more security. We could have gotten maybe some cameras, maybe some, I don't know. But we'll see here in a little bit. Another cool fact about this is that, as I stated earlier, it's one of the more expensive ones, but the value of the heist was estimated to be $200 million by the 1990s. The value now is estimated to be closer to $600 million today, and is one of the most expensive art heists in history to date. So obviously that's inflation, and this artwork is still missing, so I'll give my theories on later, what I think happened and where I think it is now. But yeah, a couple extra facts about Isabella Stewart Gardner herself. She was a renowned philanthropist and art collector, and this was basically the house that she used to house her artwork. And so she had specific rooms for certain eras and genres of art. So I know there was the Dutch room, and there were other location-based rooms as well. So we'll get into that too. I will say the Dutch room took quite a bit of damage. Let's get into the heist itself now. On March 18th, 1992, security guards were on the premise. The thieves were first witnessed around 12:30 a.m. by several St. Patrick's revealers leaving the party near the museum. And so these two police officers were basically well, I say police officers, but really they were the thieves. So these quote-unquote police officers were parked outside, I think just down the street from the actual museum itself. And then there were partygoers who, like, actually saw, these two, like, leave the car and, like, do all the other stuff. And also another fact that I think I should know, you guys should know, actually, the two security guards who were on patrol, one of them was Rick Abbott and the other one was Randy Heston. And yeah, these were just normal everyday people. Actually, I believe it was Headstand's first night watch on his job, and so that's really awful to think about. Imagine that's your first night on the job and it's probably the worst art heist in history happened then. Oh no. That's really unfortunate. But yes, the two men were disguised as police officers, and they were just seen as, like, normal people. Like, for the time being, they were just kind of waiting outside, chilling for, like, the right moment. So as these two security guards were on patrol, the fire alarm sounded in several rooms, but the guards couldn't locate any smoke. So fire alarms were going off. They just assumed it was the fake alarm or, like, a false alarm and just went about their shift. They didn't really think it had, like, anything to do with, like, anything. They just thought it was kind of weird and out of the ordinary, and, like, oh, like, all the security stuff and, like, all the other stuff was kind of old and they needed to, like, fix all of that. So at 1:20 a.m., the buzzer rang from the quote-unquote police saying that they got word of a disturbance and that they, the security guards, need to be admitted. First no of the night, one of the security guards just let them in, which is a big ol' no-no. And then by the time they were, like, let in, also, one of the security guards also started to notice that one of the mustaches of the quote-unquote police officers was literally falling off. So from their part, they could have done so much better than getting a dollar store mustache. The security guards were not aware of any disturbances, but he surmised that maybe one of the St. Patrick's Day partygoers may have climbed over the fence, causing somebody to report the police. Maybe they set off the fire alarms. Who knows? But here's the no-no. The guard admitted the thieves at 1:24 a.m. And now this is around the time where they notice, oh, the mustache is falling off. How peculiar. And then they were just fine with this. They just still went on. There's supposed to be a panic button at one of the security guards' things, at one of their, like, stations, to where they can, like, call the police. And nope. Then, when everybody was inside, everybody was kind of together, the two security guards and the two police officers, quote-unquote police officers, that's when they revealed their true intentions, and they literally handcuffed, duct taped, and put the two security guards in the basement, as then they stole the art. Yikes. That's even weirder that they have a basement. Oh no. So, side doors were last recorded to be opened at 2:45 a.m., which gives such another fascinating fact that this heist only lasted 81 minutes. So not only is this the most expensive art heist, this is one of the quicker ones that have happened. A lot of people suspect it to be, like, something of the doing of the Boston Mafia. I'm not entirely sure because, I mean, from what I've researched, it seems like nobody who was questioned, like, knew anything about it, and, like, had to be, like, two people who were at least aware of it, and I don't know. They could have been time travelers for all I know. Who knows? Now that we've kind of figured that out, I kind of want to, like, go into, like, a little bit more detail about, like, some of the artwork that was stolen and even damaged. So if I get a little bit riled up, you know why. So the first one I want to talk about, I think this is probably, like, the most famous one that got stolen. This is the concert by Johannes Vermeer. You may know him from the art of painting. You may know him from The Milkmaid. Girl with the Pearl Earring that also got made into a movie starring Scarlett Johansson, although I don't know if it's any good, but I digress. This is a very Baroque piece, so you can tell it's from the Dutch room, and yeah, you can really tell that it's Dutch because this is the same, like if you were to look this up right now, there is like a tile flooring, and it is the same tile flooring, or at least very similar to the tile flooring that we see in the art of painting. Now, we can also tell that it is Baroque because there is like a dramatic sense of lighting, and so you can see that like there might be like a window off to the side because like we're getting lighting on the wall, we're getting like some dramatic shadows on the figures, and yeah, this is a very shocking one to have been taken, and definitely one of the more expensive ones. So it is thought to have been the most valuable work created, is currently unrecovered with a value estimated at $250 million. Holy moly. So yeah, I definitely recommend you guys look this up in your own time, or you can just listen to me describe them, and it's, yeah. I also want to bring attention to like the cloth that's in the foreground as well as the stringed instrument. I want to say that's a cello. I think it's a cello. But I just really like the detailing on that. Like, you actually have to like go in and look to see what that instrument is, and it does require like a little bit of like analyzing it and just sitting in front of it and just picking up all the little details. But I'm not entirely sure what the paintings are in the background. That might be another meta thing he does, like in the art of painting, but also I'm not entirely sure who this figure is right here in the center. Maybe they are just getting him ready for an event, or I don't know. This individual does have long hair though. They've got like some nice drapes and stuff like that, but I don't know. Maybe it's something else to look into. So the next painting that got stolen was Christ in the Storm on the Sea of Galilee, and this was by Rembrandt van Rijn. As far as I'm aware, this is the only biblical depiction that he has ever made. I believe this is also his only seascape, if I remember correctly. But yes, this is the second Baroque painting, so you can also tell it's from the Dutch room. So this was unfortunately stolen, so Rembrandt's only biblical depiction and possibly his only seascape, so that was pretty shocking to see that they took. It's a pretty intense scene right here, and you can also tell that it's Baroque because of like its dramatic lighting, and you can see that it's happening within the moment, and I think we get like a little bit of Renaissance influence here. If we look at Christ on the boat, he's kind of in the shadow, but I think that kind of like helps like bring out his halo even more, which I think is a really nice detail. Like, it's not like an actual like halo, but he does kind of have like this light around him, which kind of is what that hidden halo sort of from the Renaissance era kind of evolved to the Baroque era, and I just think that's a little interesting. But yeah, then we have another Rembrandt, a lady and gentleman in black. This is just a self-portrait he did. Gosh, why are they going after Rembrandt? Leave him alone. I mean, they don't even stop after this, and it's so disappointing. Okay, this next one is a little bit of an odd choice. I think it's Impressionist, yeah, because this piece is called Chez Tortoni, and this is by Manet. Like, from all the other artists that we've seen thus far, we were kind of getting, like, very Baroque, very Dutch. This is kind of like an off choice. This is just a guy in a top hat, and he's kind of just writing and looking at us, so very interesting scene, very different too from like all the other stuff. And then I guess going along with this Impressionist theme, we can also see that quite a few of Edgar Degas' ballet series, quite a few of the sketches from that were also taken, which I don't know, that just feels very odd, because like there were like other stuff they could have taken too that would have been like much higher value, so I don't know. It's all very odd. And then alongside these sketches, there were also pieces of like fancy like regalia. So we have a French imperial eagle finial and an ancient Chinese gu. So just some fancy statues and a chalice. Is that the word? I think it's a chalice. Okay. But yeah, experts were really puzzled by this collection of art that they took because, like, maybe it could have boiled down to taste, but they didn't take any of the other expensive ones. But nonetheless, it was still very expensive, as we know. So I just think that's very odd. But yes, here's the one that makes me so mad is the damaged Rembrandt self-portrait that they had. That one's really sad because they cut it out of the frame and then they were like, oh, this is way too big. We can't take it with us. And then they just kind of left it there torn. Like, come on. Like, that's so sad. Because it was, like, allegedly too big. It was too big. But that makes me really sad. And it was a nice sketch. It involved, like, a lot of etching. I mean, we still have, like, these dramatic Baroque shadows as well. But, yeah, that one makes me sad because it didn't get stolen. But maybe even worse, it was left there, and it was damaged and broken. And, yeah. So that makes me sad. That makes me really sad. I guess moving on now to, like, personal theories as to what I think happened. I don't think it was the Boston Mafia. I'm not entirely sure who it could have been in the first place, but people suspect, like, ooh, it's the Boston Mafia. Like, no, I feel like there would have been a lot more people involved if it was the Boston Mafia. So, 2 guys, that's the Boston Mafia. Sure, that's really sad. And I probably should have also mentioned, like, one guy was supposed to be, like, really tall, and other was supposed to be, like, short and stout. So it could have been, like, the Blues Brothers for all I care. But no, my theory is that it's hanging up in somebody's house. Hear me out. I think it's probably hanging up in somebody's apartment, and those 2 guys are roommates, or whatever. And then they were just like, yeah, let's go steal some fancy art. They were like, yeah. And now it's probably hanging up in somebody's house, which is probably not very likely, but it's like what I want to think. Chances are it's probably been sold on the black market, and yeah. Let's go over, what did we learn today? So, they did have the option to get better security before any of this happened, because the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston was literally, like, begging them to get better security and, like, better equipment to help protect their art. And they didn't, because they wanted to, quote-unquote, preserve the house as how Isabella Stewart wanted it to be. I feel like she would have understood and probably been like, okay, let's invest in some better stuff. I want to keep this art as good as possible for as long as possible, and I don't want it to get stolen, so let's invest in some better security. I think she would have agreed. Can we also maybe consider handling the art better, especially very expensive art that cannot be replaced now because, like, the majority of the art, like, these artists are dead. You can't replace these, so... And maybe that one quote-unquote officer needs to invest in a better dollar store mustache. Maybe some better adhesive. I don't know. That could have been really so much better on the thieves part too. Like, maybe, I'm assuming they probably also had, like, some Spirit Halloween police officer costume as well. I don't think it was, like, the real deal. I don't know how much... From the sounds of my research, it sounds like they didn't really invest in it a whole lot. So, I think they could have done a lot better with a lot of that. Yeah, really disappointing. This was overall really disappointing, and this could have been handled so much better. Would I still like to go to the Gardner Museum? Absolutely. They still have amazing stuff. It's not like the thieves took the best stuff, so there's still, like, plenty of stuff we can look at. I encourage you guys, look at their website, maybe look at their collection, maybe even visit if you can. So, yeah. That is going to conclude this week's episode of Step on Degas. If you'd like to stay informed about when we're going to have new episodes each week, please follow us on Instagram and Twitter at StepOnDegas01. And special thanks to our patrons and our sponsors for supporting us this episode.